In 2018, which at that time I had 3 children, my youngest was born during all of that, and I was on council and all those things. So I finally kind of finished with my PhD. All the kids came to graduation, so that was really cool because they were like, "There's our mom," our mom's walking across the stage, and I would say that has always been something that I've been really proud of, to be able to say I kind of came from I wouldn't say a tough situation. Like I had a great life growing up, but it wasn't necessarily easy, and I've always had to be very independent and strong for other people around me.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Ryan Snod. It rhymes with odd, and you're listening and watching the Rhymes with Odd podcast, the premier business podcast for people in the state of Iowa. Today, we're jumping in the booth with another amazing guest. We got Bobbi Bentz, the city of Ankeny mayor, in the house. Bobbi,
yes,
thanks
thank
for
you.
coming.
Thank you.
Busy gal, so thank you so much for making time to come to little Granger, the two towns
Uptown
away.
of Granger. Yep.
The thriving
almost
downtown.
drove past.
Almost missed it. Yep. So appreciate you coming out and sharing what kind of your career story with us today.
Sure.
So Bobbi and I, we've known each other for a little bit here and there. I would say we're like, I don't know, internet connections, mutual friend connections.
Your wife used to do my hair.
Yes, probably.
I met her first.
That's probably the tip of the cap to Paige, because that's kind of how we've been connected. But it's cool to see you kind of go through your career, and now recently elected as the mayor of Ankeny, which is one of the fastest growing cities in the Midwest, in the country, I think. So I'm sure we have a lot to talk about today. So
sure.
So for people that don't know who you are, I'll let you kind of introduce yourself. If you got into an Uber, you mentioned you travel a lot. If you get in the car and you have a chatty Uber driver, what do you typically tell them when they say, "Who are you? What do you do?"
Sure. So Bobbi Bentz, like you said, I am one of the Ankeny OGs, I say. So Ankeny original, which given how much Ankeny has grown, that's not necessarily common, right? So our family, I should say, moved to Ankeny in 1980 when I was 1 year old. So it's really, I would say I'm one of the few and the proud that grew up in the town of Ankeny. When we first moved there, it was about 15,000 people, and now we just hit, around 80,000 people. So it's grown significantly during that time. But I grew up in Ankeny. I was an Ankeny Hawk when it was only one school. Then went to Cornell College over in Mount Vernon, Iowa for undergrad. And then I went to the University of Iowa for my graduate work.
What was the undergrad in?
In economics and business.
Okay.
Yeah. So I started in economics and business, but always had a lot of interest in actually psychology, politics, kind of sociology, things that are really interrelated if you think about it. But went to the University of Iowa for graduate school for my master's in public health policy and in health administration. So I got 2 master's degrees. And then I spent a year in Washington, D.C., and my husband and I had recently been married and realized we don't want to live on the East Coast or Washington, D.C. We're both from Iowa. So we moved back. I ended up starting my PhD work then at the University of Iowa, which I later finished several years later in 2018. And so we came back to Ankeny to raise our family after, college and traveling a little bit and all of that. And now have 3 kids here in Ankeny that are 17, 15, and 10. And my husband's a real estate agent in town, so he also has a pretty good pulse on the community. You kind of have to as a real estate agent. And then during that time, I first ran for council in 2012. So I've been involved in the council. I was reelected 4 times. And then this last December, when our mayor, Mark Holm, ran for county supervisor, he won that election. And then the council promoted me, if you will, ended up appointing me as mayor. So I was technically appointed as mayor in December. And then the upcoming election in November, no one's running against me as mayor. So unless there's a really strong write-in campaign, I'm likely going to be mayor the next 4 years.
Wow. Well, that's a crazy kind of life capture. Thank you so much for giving us the overcast. That's awesome. I guess the first question, especially just knowing kind of your past, it's like, what prompted you to go to school as much as you did? And what was that kind of colloquial experience for you in going through college and learning as much as you've learned?
Sure. So I always have enjoyed school. That makes me sound really weird, but I always say one of my secret superpowers, if you get asked like in a round table, what's your superpower? One of my superpowers is I'm really good at standardized tests. So I did really well in school. And I would say growing up, I can get into this a little bit too, but I was not a silver spoon kid in Ankeny. There's a lot of families like that. And our family was not in that crowd. My mom worked 2 jobs. My dad had very bad health issues when I was in high school. And I knew that in order to go to college, I was going to have to find a way to pay for it myself. So I worked a lot in high school. I worked in college. I thankfully got really nice ACT scores and high school grades as well. So graduated pretty close to the top of my class from Ankeny. And when I was even looking at college, I remember at the time my parents were like, "You're probably going to need to go to a state school because even that could be difficult for us to afford, but let's see what we can do." And Cornell came to me with the highest scholarship opportunities, actually. So I was able to go to a private school, which was great. Worked almost full time while I was in school, actually. And even then, from there, knew that I needed to be able to take care of myself for the rest of my life, really, and pay for my own school and do all these things. I've always had a really strong interest in healthcare and health policy and health administration. And so I looked into some of the top schools in the country. Like I actually got in North Carolina, Chapel Hill, which at the time was the top school for health administration for grad school. And 4 weeks before I graduated college, my dad passed away. And so, like I said, he'd been sick for a while. So my dad passed away, and it changed my plans. And honestly, I would say changed the whole trajectory of my life, because then I called Chapel. I had called in Iowa. I had applied there, and they had admitted me, but I called and I said, "Hey, would you still let me come in a couple months?" You know, at that point, it's only a few months away from August, and said, "Would you let me come? And I might just go for a year. I might then transfer to Chapel Hill." And they said, "Absolutely." They actually offered me a scholarship to come too, so that was really nice. And that's been a really neat thing that I've had over my life too, is this scholarship I ended up getting from Iowa, because it created kind of a long-term connection into the person who sponsored the scholarship. So I can talk to that a little bit too.
Oh, sure.
So I ended up going to Iowa, and really I wanted to be close to home so I could help my mom. My siblings are younger than me. I was the oldest. So I always had a lot of responsibility with my siblings too. When my dad passed away, so I was a senior in college, my sister was only a freshman in college, and she was at Iowa. She was at the University of Iowa. So that was part of my reason for staying close too, because I was like, you know, I wanted, geez, I'll get kind of teared up a little bit, but I wanted to be close for her, be close for my mom, be able to take care of everyone if I could. So I ended up at Iowa for those 3 years, finished my 2 graduate degrees. During that time is when my husband and I got married, which we wouldn't have even met, been connected, gotten married if I had gone to North Carolina, Chapel Hill. So, I mean, I'm really set my life in a different direction.
It's crazy how one choice can swing everything one way or the other.
Absolutely. And so we were in Eastern Iowa then for a while, going to school, doing those things, and then came back to the Des Moines Metro. I worked at the Iowa Department of Public Health for a few years, and I did this really cool program there that was looking at bringing in international medical graduates to Iowa in underserved areas. And a lot of what I've done throughout my career, put my kind of political career aside, my real career, as I like to call it. I always call it like my volunteer side life with politics and government and city and those kinds of things, and volunteering, all of that. And then my real work. But I really got involved in this program where I was doing a lot of analytics on looking at retention and recruitment of physicians into underserved areas of Iowa. I used to run this program in the state where you would analyze areas of the state for health professional shortage areas. And so I was doing all this cool stuff. I'm like, this would be a great dissertation project. This would be a great research project to do, not just for myself, but for the state too. So I ended up going back to Iowa again to do my doctoral work, and spent a few years doing school where I would drive between Des Moines or from Ankeny to Iowa City to do coursework. Was working on my dissertation for a full 5 years. Finally finished my dissertation in 2018, which at that time I had 3 children. My youngest was born during all of that, and I was on council and all those things. So I finally kind of finished with my PhD. All the kids came to graduation, so that was really cool because they were like, "There's our mom," our mom's walking across the stage. And I would say that has always been something that I've been really proud of, to be able to say I kind of came from I wouldn't say a tough situation. Like, I had a great life growing up, but it wasn't necessarily easy. And I've always had to be very independent and strong for other people around me. So, but that's really helped shape kind of how I am today. And I would say the way I approach our family, the way I approach life, truly the way I approach things in Ankeny too. I try to bring that really diversity of opinion. But it really led me to, pick myself up from my bootstraps, be successful, and know that I always needed to be able to be somebody who could be self-sustaining and always support myself and always just make sure that, I wanted to be a rise above kind of the generation before me. And I knew that's what my parents always wanted too. So I worked really hard, basically, to get to everywhere that I've been, everything that I've done. And I always tell my kids that and everyone else, like, it's a real testament to when you see someone, and I run into this too, when you see someone who seems very successful. I mean, I have a great job now. I've done really well in my career. I have 3 amazing kids. I've been married for over 20 years. I'm the mayor of Ankeny, one of, 5th largest city in Iowa.
Let's go, Bobbi.
5th largest city in Iowa. So
I love it.
I have a few feathers in my cap. But when people just see that, they don't know that backstory that, people who have known me for a really long time or knew me maybe when I was in junior high or high school, they might not have seen that trajectory or not have even given a thought that, like, that's where this girl's going to end up potentially. Mm-hmm. So I do share that with people a lot because I think in school right now and, in life and everywhere else, you do make a lot of assumptions about people when you meet them. And helping to understand, where did they come from or what's their perspective, and it might not be what you thought it was.
No, I love that perspective too because I know we've interviewed a lot of people on the show. I think you're episode number 93,
okay.
And we've had people on that again. We just start talking about life, and I feel like, in my experience, the most successful people I've met through the show and just in conversation have all had some of the hardest experiences because they kind of groom you to get through hard things, where I feel like you said, this kind of silver spoon mentality of like someone that's got it a lot easier in their life. While that is a blessing for sure, you don't really have the calluses to be able to like keep going in life when things because life always throws curveballs at you.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, and I always say that now, like my siblings are a little bit younger than me. So when my dad first was sick, when I was in high school, he had a quintuple bypass when I was a freshman.
Oh my gosh.
And it was very sudden, kind of came out of nowhere. He had actually been traveling for work the week before, went to his doctor, and they immediately admitted him. And from right then, so I was 15, I didn't really have a full license, right? My mom was trying to take care of him and work and do everything else. I just started doing everything. Like, I took my siblings to school, picked them up, made dinner, did whatever, because that's just what I had to do, right? And so I always kind of say that now. I'm like, so I kind of drove illegally for a while and just did what I needed to do and would go to Des Moines, not, whatever. So when I think about that now, I'm like, I grew up really quickly with some of that, but also in a good way because it was all bringing our family together and making sure that, everything was taken care of. And I think that's my personality now, is like making sure everything's kind of taken care of and that is in order and that just do what needs to get done.
Sure. Well, and I know you mentioned this kind of like, I would say, constant feeling of like making sure you can be self-sufficient and take care of yourself. Has there been a point in your life or your career where you felt like you could rev that feeling down a little bit, or is that always a kind of a thing in the back of your mind? Like, I've got to be busy, I got to be doing things because I'm never going to go back to a situation where I feel out of control of where my future goes.
Yeah, I would say the last few years, and I kind of like to call that COVID time mentality a little bit, where, everyone had to kind of sit back and see how do we do things in a different way. Are we really spreading ourselves a little too thin? And for good and for bad, because I've seen where a lot of people, families, work things have become much more casual, more internally focused, if you will. And so that's been good, I think, for people managing their time and being like, I need to make sure that I have my family time appropriately and my work time and that there's a good balance there. And even, I actually changed my job about right at that time. Actually, in March of 2020, which was super weird, I changed jobs at that exact time into a position that I was elevated in my career, but had much better work-life balance than I had previously. And so that all kind of happened at the same time. And on the flip side of that, though, I would say now I'm involved in a lot of nonprofit activity, volunteering activity. We are seeing that people haven't really come back to volunteering, participating in things, even giving, time, talent, treasure kind of thing. So it's definitely a balance. But I feel like I've made a point to be sure that I always have those supports around me. My husband is extremely helpful. Like, we are a team, and now that our 2 oldest daughters are driving and a little bit older, we have this 10-year-old that all 4 of us are like, how do we get him here, there, and the other place? So it's definitely a team, and it helps that we both have very flexible and supportive work structures too, because without being able to do that, I wouldn't be able to do all the things that I do.
Sure. Do you have, I mean, I'm assuming your schedule is kind of wild. We can talk about it in a bit, but do you ever have time for yourself or just time to hang with your husband? Is that you still work that in with your schedule?
Absolutely. We make sure we go on vacations a couple times a year, just the 2 of us, and try to do family vacation too with all 5 of us. And then this is not really a secret, I'm a big napper.
Okay.
Like I take a nap almost every day.
Wow, congrats.
And yes, and people know that about me. So it's funny because I work it into my schedule. So even on Monday when I'm looking forward in my schedule, or every day at 8 a.m., I'm like, when can I have a nap today?
That is awesome.
And that's kind of my time, which is, it sounds crazy, but I've gotten to where I can take a nap almost anywhere for like 20 or 30 minutes. So even if it's in my car, I can take a nap. If it's in my living room, if it's in my bedroom, whatever. It's just kind of funny. So
yeah, I know you went to college a long time because that's like total college thing. That
for retained. Sure. Yes,
it's going for
I'm really good at
class.
napping, but I'm one of those people that I'm probably the most productive at night. And so I do a lot between, and maybe this is when I was working on my dissertation, had young kids and all of that. But I used to work all day, do stuff with family, put everyone to bed, and work on my dissertation for my PhD from like 8 to midnight, And I still do a lot of that where people get emails and things from me at weird times, especially after probably between 10 and 1 a.m. And so I don't sleep a lot at night as part of it. And say maybe like 6 hours or something. But yes, I am a champion napper.
Well, that cat nap, that power nap, that can really, that probably catches you up on like 2 or 3 hours of missed sleep.
Absolutely.
It's like if you're actually out, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting though, because as you mentioned, work has changed, people's schedules change. And then knowing that with the email stuff, I think there's a lot more people can understand, okay, this came at a weird time, but I'll respond when I
exactly.
want to.
And I think there's a lot of exactly. And I'll even say that. I do that. Probably the person who sees my weirdest schedule is our city manager. Because I work a full-time job, I have kids, whatever, but I'm the mayor of Ankeny. And so I have an office at City Hall, which I go to, and I try to work out of there a few days a week or a few hours a week or whatever I can do. But he gets the strangest times and emails and calls from me to the point where I've even I didn't even know you could do this till like a year ago, but I'll schedule my texts. So I'll be like writing him a text, and instead of hitting send, I'll make sure it sends at 8:02 the next morning. So he's not like, what are you doing? But yeah, so that he's probably the one that sees the strangest times of things from me.
Sure.
But yeah.
Because is your mayor role, it's a full-time role then, correct?
So being mayor is really strange. Ankeny is one of these cities where we still operate our government a little bit as what I would call small town mentality. We haven't really grown our governance structure with our city growth. So what I mean by that is when you think about some of the larger cities in Iowa, but nationally as well, their mayor is more of a full-time role, is kind of like the CEO of the board, if you will. And then you have a city administrator or city manager that kind of makes sure everything happens. We've always been a little bit of a weaker governance structure where we have 5 council members and the mayor. So I don't know if you'd put a time on it necessarily. The mayor does get paid in Ankeny $10,000 a year.
Wow, nice.
Yes, so it really covers kind of the time and cost of driving to meetings. I do a lot of regional things, all of that. And then council members at $7,000 a year. So we do get paid technically, but otherwise it's not anything. It's just a stipend. It's just a stipend. So every 2 weeks I get like $200 or something like that, something fun like that. But time-wise, it really varies. Some weeks it may be 40 hours. Like it really may be. Other weeks we might not have a council meeting that week. It might be just not a lot, honestly, happening that week. And it could just be a few hours here and there doing email or calls or those kinds of things. And some of it is how much you want to put into it. And the council can be the same way. I try to really involve myself in the city, not just in the city structure itself, but in the community. So I try to attend chamber events. I am volunteering with a lot of different things. I do a lot of things with the schools. So the school district and the city are 2 totally different entities, right? But like last Friday, I went to Northeast Elementary and met with all these third graders. They asked me a bunch of fun questions. And I try to attend a lot of school events, try to be engaged on school strategic planning efforts, those kinds of things. I try to do a lot of that. I also like to make myself available to the public. So you were asking about my favorite coffee earlier and where I like to go. I like to go places in town where there's a lot of people there. So Porchlight is one of them. I love Porchlight anyway, but it's in Uptown. I always see at least 5 or 6 people I know, can touch base with a lot of different people, meet with our, county supervisor, Mark. I talk to him probably every other day on a lot of different issues. Talk to our city manager regularly, talk to my other council members pretty regularly on pretty much every day, talk to somebody. And then I meet a lot with, especially business and industry in Ankeny and developers. I mean, I spend a lot of time with them because they're so on the pulse of what's happening in the community, what's coming, what they're dealing with, things we might be looking at from zoning or growth or what have you. So it really depends. I mean, I might have a week where it's 10 hours of work, if you will, and a week where it's, 40. Mm-hmm. And it depends on what you call. So tonight, I'm excited. I'm going to the On With Life Gala. Okay. So On With Life is located in Ankeny. That's something that I just like to be involved in those kinds of things. I don't have to go to that, but technically I'm going because I'm the mayor of Ankeny and they're in our community and I think they're a great organization. But that'll be 3 or 4 hours. So do I count that as like mayor work? Like, sure. I don't know. Or to me, it's just kind of things I would like to do anyway.
Sure. Yeah. Well, so you're doing it more of like a part-time, full-time flex role. Yeah. Do you have another job then that you do outside of the mayor?
I do, yeah. Okay. So I use my PhD actually. I'm sure my husband's happy to hear that. But I work for a pharmaceutical company that I work within an area called health outcomes and medical engagement. So we are all in this health outcome space of looking at how do our drugs really impact population? So I kind of take my population, public health background, policy background, analytical background, and really I talk math every day. I talk statistics every day. I talk clinical data every day and travel a decent amount for that, usually probably 5 days a month or so. So yeah, so I have a real job. That's what I always say is my real job. So my real job, I have my mayor job, I have my mom job, I have all these things. But I found a way to make it all work together.
Sure. And it sounds like the real job, the full-time job is very flexible enough that you can be doing different things here and there and kind of ebb and flow.
Yeah, it's nice to be home-based. I mean, a lot of people know that who work remotely, but I'm home-based and, I'm not like on an hourly schedule necessarily, but I obviously have a lot of work that needs to be done. But for example, this week I was traveling Monday through Thursday. So it's Friday right now. So Monday through Thursday. And, when you're gone every day like that, there's kind of an expectation that like, okay, on that Friday, you're probably flexing time, right? Because you just spent 4 hours away from your family working. So yeah, so having that flexibility is really important. And I just like it. Like I really like what I do, which is nice.
Sure. When I was reading, you are Ankeny's first female mayor, correct?
I am, yeah.
How's that milestone hit for you personally?
For me, probably less than for others. Like it was kind of, I don't know, it's one of those things where, so when I was first elected to the council in 2012, I was the youngest person elected to the council at the time. Not anymore, at the time. And then I was only the second female to be on the council ever, which sounds crazy being 2012 that it took that long. Mm-hmm. And then, so it was kind of a highlight then, like, oh, we have this young woman, running for council and won. And then being the mayor, a little bit similarly. It's good and bad a little bit because I want to be thought of for all of my accomplishments and my background and what I bring to the role, not just that I'm a female. So it's tough, but obviously I think it's a great milestone too. And I think women have so much to offer to bring into politics. And I like that we have had good female kind of composition of our council the last few years. So after I was on council, then Carrie Walter Ashby came on council, Kelly Stearns came on council. So for a while, we actually had more women than men on the council. However, going into this next election, it will be all men. Okay. There's only men running for the council seats. So it'll be me as mayor and 5 men. So it'll be a shift back a little bit, which is kind of interesting.
Sure.
Yeah, it's been good. I have a lot of things that have come up as mayor or council more so than mayor. Being a woman and having a baby too is kind of interesting. I can share a quick story where my son, like I said earlier, he's 10. He was born in 2015, so I'd been on the council for 3 years at that point in time. And I remember, so two things that are kind of funny. When he was born on January 20th. We had an all-day planning session on a Friday. He was born on a Monday. That was held over at Otter Creek in Ankeny. And the very first presenters of the day, it's budget presentations. All of the directors come and talk to us. Chief of police, chief of the fire department, everyone, they all come. They usually come first. Fire and police start the day. So the fire department was there, and they usually bring like several of the EMTs and others. And I am sitting there 10 months pregnant. I knew I was having a planned C-section on Monday. So 3 days later, I have my feet up on a chair. I'm sitting back just like doing my thing. And the fire chief takes me aside and he's like, should we stay here? Like, he's just like, should we hang out? And I'm like, I'm fine. I can call you if I need to. And then, so then I had my son that Monday. But at the end of that day too, our mayor at the time, sorry, Gary, got to call you out, but Gary Lorenz at the time, a wonderful person. I've always gotten along with him so well. But I just remember he pulled me aside and he's like, okay, so I'm assuming that you'll be gone for a few months. And I was really shocked. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Where am I going? Like, I'm not planning on going anywhere. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, you're having a baby and you're going to be gone. You're not going to be at meetings. I'm like, I'm going to be at meetings. I don't know what you're talking about. And so I then got it in my head, like, I'm not going to miss anything.
Oh, okay.
And so then Monday, we didn't have a council meeting that day, but I had my son. We had a council meeting the following Monday. So I had a C-section, right? So 8 days post C-section, I went to that council meeting and I walked in and I think everybody was like, okay, this is what's happening. So I never missed anything. And then when I was on maternity leave for work during a few months with at home with my son, and I would take him to things in his carrier. So I would go to like Polk County Emergency Management meeting or a council meeting or whatever, and I would just bring him and I'd set him behind the dais and he would just sleep or chill or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so there was one time at a Polk County Emergency Management meeting, he was only a few weeks old, and people hadn't even realized I brought him in, actually. Like, they just thought I had a big purse or something, and I set him down. And he cried all of a sudden. And Polk County Emergency Management has all the different fire chiefs. And they all turn and look at they think that their alarms are going off because this baby's crying. And I'm like, it's just my baby. And I just pick him up, and everyone's like, okay.
There's a baby in here? Like,
right, exactly. There's a baby here? What? Who brought a baby in a bar? No, who brought this baby? So anyway, it's been kind of funny. So I think since then, I really set that precedent of like, I can do both of these things, and I can do it very well, and no one ever questioned me again.
Sure. No, I love that. and the fact that you're in a room with a lot of people that are EMT folks.
Absolutely.
They've seen crazier stuff. They're probably not like...
Yeah, they're like, whatever.
I'm sure if you had a meeting with like a developer or something, like more of a suited up person, they might be a little weirded out. But
over time, I think even just in this time that I was on the council, so 2012 to today, 13 years, I think that has evolved a lot, actually, and maybe COVID helped, truly, having your kids with you, bringing them to different events. I've had my kids at council meetings. I've had them come to meetings with me. They'll sit in the back. They'll just come along. We meet at the library. They'll go to the library or come sit in the back of the meeting, those kinds of things. And that's very common and expected, and no one blinks an eye any longer.
Sure. No, I always say, like with Paige and I, we always take our kids where, like, whatever we do, we take the kids with, and that's been a big thing of like just so they get integrated. I always say like they figure out how to integrate with your life, not the other way around.
Absolutely.
Like, you just bend your will to whatever the kids
I love the way you said that. So in integrating our life together, it's when I first ran on council, my two girls were 4 and 2. It's really all they've known. And then my son, like I said, was born when I was on the council. It's really all he's known. So they go to a lot of events with me. They've been in the parade, multiple times at Summerfest, those kinds of things. And they've met people that they would never have had access to previously. And it's also taught them how to act in public, how to treat someone, how to address someone. And those are life skills that I don't know how else they would have picked them up, So, for example, they've met congressmen. They've met the governor multiple times. It's my middle daughter. She's funny. She's met Governor Reynolds several times, Governor Branstad before that. But they're on a first name basis. And so they go hug each other. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, okay.
Hey, Kim, how's it going?
Okay.
Like, nice to meet you.
Okay. Yeah. But I think it does build those skills that they'll always have. And to them, like I said, this is just normal life to them, that they know my schedule is kind of interesting and I go place to place and bring them along sometimes, don't other times. They'll ask me about it.
Yeah.
Come to their classrooms and talk or introduce myself to people. And it's always a joke a little bit when we go somewhere as to how long, if I meet someone that I don't really know or they're from Ankeny, at what point in the conversation do I say, well, I'm the mayor? Or like something comes up.
Yep.
And so it's kind of a joke in our family. Like, did you tell them you're the mayor? So, and it does happen. And I even try not to say it. I fly a decent amount. I was on a plane a month ago. And this woman sitting next to me, and she's like, oh, my husband is interviewing for a job at Casey's. We might be moving to this town called Ankeny, and she's telling me about how they looked at homes and they have looked at all these different things and how different restaurants they tried or whatever. And I was like, oh, yeah, I live in Ankeny. So she's asking me all these questions. So I start telling her, giving her advice. And she's like, oh, you're so helpful. And thank you so much. And then I finally was like, well, I am the mayor. And so I think she thought I was joking. She's like, you are for real? She's like, you didn't say that right away. I'm like, I know. I try not to. Yeah. But anyway.
People change it up.
Yes.
Well, it's interesting, too, because like we talk about kind of being comfortable with things. Like my son's 3, super chatty little guy. And we've gotten to the point now where he'll ask me, like, what did I do during the day? And he's like, can I see? Like, if I took pictures or videos or have anything to show him. So I think it's, again, that curiosity about what mom or dad do helps just make them a little more comfortable with things.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's very interesting, though. You mentioned, like, you've grown up in Ankeny. Tell me about this transformation that you've seen it go from, like, a little farm town, so to speak, or a small suburb to what it is today. Like, tell me about that transformation you've seen.
Oh, it's been fascinating. So I would say when we first moved to Ankeny, it was about 15,000, something around that. And we recently hit the 77,000 mark. So even from when I first came on the council, so 2012 again, that's like one of the dates in my mind that always is a landmark, if you will. It was about 50,000. So even in the time I've been involved in city government, we've grown by more than 25,000 people. And I was looking up, like I said earlier, I'm a big data nerd, statistics person. Like that's kind of my background and what I do every day. I'll be asked to come do introductions at events, at conferences, things that are happening in Ankeny. So I've looked up some of this information. And we recently, so in the last 5 years, we always do a special census. So the census occurs in, the tens, like 2010, 2020, 2030. And road use tax funds, other things are tied to census because depending on how many people you have, that's how much money you get from the federal government. Right. Streets are obviously an issue in Ankeny, so we want to get all our road use tax funds. So when we did a special census in 2024-ish, 2025, that's when we learned we gained 8,000 people just from 2020. So 8,000 people. So I was like, how many towns in Iowa even have 8,000 people or are smaller than that? So 94% of Iowa has towns of 8,000 people or less. So we grew what 94% of Iowa towns are the size of. We grew that in 5 years. And I think when people hear it that way, or that we're gaining 7 people a day, they're like, wow, that's a big growth. And so it's been interesting because we've had a lot of outgrowth, so on the outskirts of town. And then we've been a little bit unique in that we've had such an inner growth with the area around Prairie Trail. That was actually used to be a huge donut in the middle of town, and then had a big development go through. We were able to get that land from the Iowa State University Research Farm originally and bring in DRA, which has now made that area just amazing. But you don't see that in other communities necessarily, that you have kind of that inner growth. So it's been interesting. There's so many things that are absolutely so positive with growth of industry, growth of businesses, growth of residential areas, parks, all of these things, just basic amenities, new library, new fire stations, those kinds of things, all the trails and things that we do. Because we want Ankeny to continue to grow and be a place people want to come to. But then there's also headaches that a lot of places in Iowa just don't deal with. So street infrastructure, growing out sewer, water infrastructure. We just built a brand new water tower that was millions and millions of dollars, things that other areas in Iowa just aren't an issue. And so when we're working with the legislature, for example, my problems are not the problems that they're hearing from the majority of Iowa communities. And it's hard to be like, oh, Ankeny, we feel bad for your problems. But then to, our credit, we'll say we're growing our state. Like, wouldn't you hope that most communities would reflect and kind of look like we do? Like, how are we growing? How are we successful at growing? How can we make a lot of other Iowa kind of like Ankeny? Is there ways to do that in how we've set up our government, our policies, our approach to development, those kinds of things too. So yeah, there's pluses and minuses that come with growth, definitely. But overall, it's mostly very positive.
Well, I think it's kind of this perfect storm, too. We shoot with Ankeny Business and Industry Collaborative. They've been a client of ours for probably, 10, 12 years now. So every year we always kind of see the highlights of like people moving to town, reinvesting in town. And I always just think it's crazy because there's kind of just this perfect storm of great location, I-35, I-80 intersection for logistics, obviously, and access to Des Moines, a good suburb, whatever. And then in turn, like you mentioned, just having a community partner like DRA and Dennis Albaugh that wants to reinvest the kind of money, like that, those things would take generations to do.
Absolutely. And we're really lucky when it comes to that, because when you think of some of our major developers on the commercial industry side and on the residential side, they are local Ankeny residents. And that's not common. I mean, when you think of the Elwell family, they are longtime Ankeny residents. Same as the Albaugh family. The two, Denny and Dennis, they graduated in the same high school class from Ankeny, which I don't even think a lot of people know that. But I mean, they're longtime Ankeny families. And then on the residential side, we have that same thing with the Kimberly family. They've been there a really long time, and that's now a second generation business, as well as D.R. Horton, which used to be like Classic Builders, and the Moulton family, same thing, second generation. So, and they're from Ankeny, and that's not common. Like, you don't see that same thing in other communities necessarily, for them to be so involved in the growth. And then, of course, we have these amazing businesses that, like, I travel for work and people are like, oh, well, what is Ankeny known for? I'm like, we're the headquarters of Casey's. We have a huge John Deere plant. That's still our largest employer in town is John Deere. I don't think even a lot of people realize that. And things like Tone Spices, all these different industries that we have here too. Like, we're very blessed to have those kinds of things local.
Sure. Well, and having those businesses to provide jobs, but then also like colleges with the DMAC, like the main campus is there, so people are coming for college. There's a ton of retirement communities, like people at every single stage of life, whether you're like coming for you're a child in a family, like good public schools, but then you have private school options, but then you also have multiple colleges in school with a Baptist college, but also a community college. Proximity to Des Moines. Like, again, it's this perfect storm of like just growth and just people coming for different reasons in different stages of life too.
And we've been looking a lot at that. Like I said, with the special census we did, that was a big question I had, is like, where are they coming from? Who are these people? And it's been a shift a little bit. We have a lot of people who, Ankeny used to kind of be more of a bedroom community to Des Moines. And then it grew to where we were almost a bedroom community to Ames and Des Moines. So people with dual income families that were going different directions for work would go both ways. We still have a lot of people like that. Now we have more and more people living and working in the community. And then so people are coming for work. They're coming from smaller areas of Iowa. So we are getting people from smaller areas of Iowa. But we're getting people from, I would say, the coasts of the U.S. They're coming looking for lower cost of living, lower crime, the things that made us like the top small city in Iowa kind of thing. And it's safety, it's amenities, it's cost of living, great schools, like you said. And then the other big growth, so you kind of mentioned this, is multi-generational, where, we had all these young families move in 10 years ago or so. It's all their parents.
Yeah, grandma and grandpa are moving into town to be close to family. Like, where are they going to go?
Absolutely. And so we've had a huge growth in that, which funnier enough is causing problems with parking at sporting events. I know that sounds really funny, but when you have a big, like volleyball, basketball, whatever, and you have grandpa and grandma there, other grandpa and grandma, parents, aunts and uncles, like people, like 10 people in 5 vehicles are coming to watch little Johnny like play soccer. And so that kind of creates some problems when it comes to parking, but it's a great problem to have.
Sure. Well, and it's even, I just related to my story as well. My wife and I are in Polk City, and we're from, like you said, a community of less than whatever the growth rate was, 8,000 people, whatever it was. So that's kind of our allure, but then obviously Paige works in Ankeny and wants to be close to that. But her parents moved up as well because they wanted to be close to family, and her sister lives in Ankeny as well.
Yeah,
and
see,
all of us are keep having grandkids and things, and they want to be close proximity.
You fit the trend.
Yeah. But it's also like, again, just having those amenities where we have, or I shouldn't say Ankeny has different things for, like you said, the ball field amenities that you don't have to leave town. You can like now with the district area, it's like you can work, play, live, everything in there, and not have to leave anywhere, which again draws more and more people. I
almost never leave, which
unless you're flying somewhere.
Right. Unless I'm flying somewhere, I rarely go to other parts of the metro unless I need to be for a meeting or something. And I think over time it has lessened. I mean, I used to go, to the various malls, or when there were other malls outside of Jordan Creek, and go to West Des Moines more for restaurants and things like that. And we don't really need to do that any longer. There are so many options locally.
Sure. No, I love that. We kind of talk about this like growth mindset. Tell me a little bit about how that's really fueled the growth, because it seems like everyone's on the same page in the community of like, we're on a rocket ship of speed and growth, and you better get on or get out type of thing, where it's like, this is what we're doing, where other communities in town, i.e. Granger, we talk a lot. We have the city of Granger has a podcast here that we talk to the community of like this dueling battle of like legacy families that want to keep things small or traditional, and then other people that want to come in and be progressive and change and grow. Yeah. How have you guys like united? Like it seems like everyone's on the same page in terms of residents, businesses, the council, we're all pulling the boat in the same way. Yeah,
we've tried to do that. I kind of call that Team Ankeny. So it's not just the city team and the school district, and but it's also the chamber. It's various businesses and industry, and like, where are we all going together? I think from the city perspective, we have tried to be residential friendly and business friendly. So when it comes to, what policies do we put in place, when we think about zoning and growth and where we put in infrastructure, where we invest as well, we've tried to be cognizant of a growth mindset in a way that's manageable. So we don't want to grow so fast that we can't put in the infrastructure. And that has come up recently too. So we had recently some large annexations come into the city. Can we do that in a sustainable way? And I think, unfortunately, it's a true statement that if you're not growing, you're dying a little bit. And we see that in other parts of the state. And so how do you always kind of stay on top of that growth in a way that, brings positive things to the community? We've had opportunities. One of the very first things that came to the council when I was first elected, early 2012, 2013, was the potential to add a casino in town. It was proposed to be out on the east side of the interstate, kind of where Costco is today, actually. And it was very controversial. It would have been a way to grow in a different way. It would have been a way to bring in different workers, construction too, just all of those things. And I was newer to the council, and I was one of the people that said, I don't think this is right for our community. I'm really opposed. Everything I was hearing from the community, which I try to always have a good pulse on, was not in favor. It was very, very few that were in favor. And so I was kind of the first person on the council. I was the only no vote at first. And then it shifted quickly when everyone else started hearing from the community a little bit more fervently, if you will. And so that was one of those things where we said, I don't think this is the right fit. We've had other opportunities early on. We were one of the communities that Facebook, now Meta, came to before they went to Altoona. And similar, we said, I don't know if this is the right for us right now. At the time, data centers like that required a lot of water infrastructure, and we didn't feel like we could support something like that. We've actually been a little more hands-off with some data centers for that reason. Now that technology has really changed in how they use water and how they use infrastructure and other things, we have had some new data center growth.
Sure. I know Edge just finished because we shot a video for them. And then also they got this award for their data center.
Absolutely. So. And they do a very different thing where it's like captured water and it's not using so much. So,
and then wind energy, I think, is a big piece, and solar, like renewable energy, which the state is pretty well known for having a lot of wind energy.
So those have been considerations where sometimes, I'll get asked like, well, why didn't we do X and X project? And I'll say, well, actually, they approached us and we didn't think it was the right thing. So you have to make sure that you're balancing some of that too.
Sure. No, that makes total sense. One of the questions I had, I know you've had a finger on the pulse for a long time. If you had a magic wand, you could snap your fingers and fix one major issue in Ankeny. What would probably be that thing for you?
Oh, the toughest thing that I probably hear the most about too, and everyone's going to nod their head when I say this, is definitely street infrastructure. So we have historically and continue to be extremely conservative when it comes to how we build out our infrastructure and when. And it's the way we finance projects. So we kind of finance growth. So when I say infrastructure, I mean street, sewer, water. We kind of finance that infrastructure on an as needed basis. So it's like a just in time approach. Okay, development's coming here. Yep, let's go. Development's over here now. Okay, go that way. Other parts of the metro, so this is what I hear frequently, other parts of the metro take a build it and they will come approach. So if you think about far western suburbs is probably the best example. Waukee, West Des Moines has done this as well. They grow out very large streets with, all the beautiful left-handed turns and lights and all the things in fields of nothing with the hope and thought, and that has worked, that it'll come. The development will come. It'll repay itself. So over the last several years, we always took the other approach, which truly has led to why we have the lowest tax rate in the metro. We have the lowest debt in the metro. Like that is why we have those things. But people don't always see that. They see like the traffic, they see the construction happening at a time that's not convenient. And when the growth seems like it's there, why is the street not larger? We have gone back and had to redo streets and make them oversize them, make them right-sized later on, and sometimes more frequently and sooner than we would have hoped. 36th Street's a great example of that. Others are great examples of that, but where we put in like a 2-lane and then within 5 years we have to expand it, add turn lanes, all of that. So that is the one thing I really wish I could do, like a magic wand and go back even 15 years and maybe take that other approach, because they've predominantly used TIF dollars to do that, which I won't go into all that, but they predominantly use TIF dollars, which then you have to have the development come in to repay that, which it worked. It did work. And they had the growth. And Ankeny's always been like, is our growth really going to continue at 10 or 12 or 15%? We've always built in 3% growth every year, and then we've exceeded it. So we've been far more conservative than we probably needed to be. And looking back, right, like hindsight's 2020. But even now, I'm still at the point where we know the legislature is going to be cracking down significantly on the way those kinds of things are financed and done, and how TIF and other financing mechanisms for cities can be used. So do we want to make that shift now? And we've been able to hold our debt, hold our tax rate so low that it would cost more money. Taxes likely would go up if we were to change approach there. So it's tough. It's tough to figure out, like, can we now make that change going forward? And I don't know if we can.
Sure. No, I think I think a lot of people in Ankeny would probably agree with you for there. We can take a break from the conversation, go to the lightning round here.
Oh, okay.
These are the questions you have not been briefed on. We'll kind of shoot them at you and see how you can do here. First question: if you could have lunch with any historical figure, who would you sit down with?
With any historical figure, probably somebody like Ronald Reagan. I love politics and history and all of those kinds of things. And he's one of those people that is also just such a really great speaker, orator, if you will. And that's something that sometimes is hard for me and hard. And I feel like, how do people do that so well? Just go into any environment and just talk about whatever. So I would probably say Ronald Reagan. Plus, he was the president during some really interesting and tough times, which we're now kind of seeing again happen. So
Sure.
It would be great to hear his feedback.
No, I love that. That's great. You mentioned you have multiple phones. What's the most used app on any of your given phones at a given time?
Ooh, most used app is probably just texting. I mean, I don't know that that's really an app, but probably that one. And email.
Okay.
Just email.
Any fun iPhone apps that you use to kind of pass time if you're at a downtime moment?
So people might find this really funny, but I like to play Pokemon Go.
Okay. I would not have guessed you to say that.
I know. Nobody would.
That's awesome.
I love Pokemon Go. And I travel a decent amount. So you get to go to cool places where you can do Pokemon Go. But no, I am a big Pokemon Go person. Even my kids make fun of me too. They're like, "Are you playing Pokemon?" I'm like, "Yes, I am."
I love that. I can see you out during COVID with the backpack with your car battery in the back, keeping your phone charged as you're like scanning the stuff.
I'll do like if I'm walking my dog somewhere or something, I'll pull out the Pokemon Go. Yeah, it's funny.
I love that.
But yeah, Pokemon Go, which most people would not expect of me. But,
sure.
Yeah.
No, I love
it's
that.
It's the nerd in me. Sorry.
Okay. No, I love that. That's great. I know you've probably talked to a lot of residents. What's probably one of the quirkiest requests or kind of things that have been like, Really? Like somebody's requested or said, you need to bring this up to the council.
I recently had one that's kind of fun and cute and historical. So there is a park in the middle of an older part of Ankeny, right behind Northwest Elementary, that literally the entire town calls and knows as Cheese Park because it has a giant piece of cheese that you can climb on. So this park actually has a real name that's something else that I don't even know. Like, that's how bad it is. It's like, I don't know, Trail Tribute Park or something. So we had a request come forward recently where someone came to a council meeting, longtime Ankeny resident, and said, can we officially change village? It's called Village Park. That's the real name. I don't know why. Village. I guess Ankeny was a village at the time. And asked if we could change the name of Village Park to Cheese Park. So that was kind of a fun, quirky request.
Sure. I love that. That's a fun one. If you could swap seats for a week with another mayor in another part of the country, which township, city would you want to be the mayor of for 1 week?
You know, I don't know. I think I would like to be in a community kind of like Ankeny to learn from that experience. So a growing community, a Midwestern community, one that has similar background to us, if you will, similar like growth issues and similar just demographics, because I think we're doing things well, but are there better ways we could do that? Like, I don't think I'd want to go be plopped in a large, big city, and it just wouldn't be the same necessarily. I don't know necessarily what I'd get out of that. Or like a very small town, I don't think it would either. But I don't know, maybe like a suburb to... It sounds boring, but like a suburb to Kansas City or somewhere in Texas.
Like Lee Summit, Kansas or something.
Exactly. I think I could learn from that and how they set up their government structure, what their major kind of development policies are, because those are the things we struggle with. And just knowing, we always want to know what are the best practices. Yeah. Are we among the best? I ask those questions a lot to our, residential developers, commercial people who are building businesses here. Like, when you deal with other cities, what do you like and not like about it? What do we do well and not do well? So I think that's where I could learn the most from it, probably.
No, I love that. Because I know you mentioned like some mayors are like a full-time role. Is Ankeny on the cusp of that where it could?
We've talked about that quite a bit. And it's one of those tricky things where I don't even tie it to pay, but I think a lot of people do, is like, okay, if you made it a full-time job, like what's the pay? What are the benefits? What are this, that, and the other? And so we would have to do that. Like operationally, you'd have to make those decisions. Like, is this now a full-time job? And if so, what is the salary? And that gets weirdly political. But then from my perspective, it's more like, I want to make sure that the next person who's mayor, who, I don't know if they're a retiree or they have a small business or they have whatever, like we want people coming into this role, not just because they have the spare time, but that they have the interest and the ability and the background to do it. I am worried that you won't have somebody like me who can balance a lot of those things and who isn't as flexible. And we might not have the best person in the role because it's not providing the support someone needs just to like have basic health insurance or, a fairly basic salary. Like, that's what concerns me about it. And then as the size of the community that we are, it's not sustainable to have someone who has a schedule like I do. Like, you do need someone that's their number one focus. And I mean, there's things I could easily be doing all things Ankeny 10 hours a day, easily. And I'm not currently. And so is that a detriment to the city right now or not? I don't know if it is, but I don't want to get to the point where it is. And so we need to get ahead of that. So at some point, I do think we need to make a shift in our government structure and raise the role of the mayor, if you will, to be more of a full-time, like in-house person who's at City Hall pretty much all day, every day.
Sure.
And involved in a lot more of the kind of day-to-day decision-making. So
it sounds like that 100,000 residents kind of the cutoff. I would guess.
Probably. So. I mean, it's interesting though, because when you think about other cities our size are already there. we're kind of behind. I'd say it's usually more around like the 50 to 75 range.
Okay.
So we're probably a little bit behind the times, but it is that, like, we do still have kind of a small town mentality in a big city, which I love about Ankeny too. Like we have Uptown and we have these things that we do that are traditions and we, really support. We're a separate community from the Des Moines. I don't consider Ankeny a suburb. I always am like, we're Ankeny, we're a separate thing. We're our own identity. And that's really been one of my goals as mayor too, actually, is how do we do that? But with that comes raising how our government structure works and the engagement of our council and our mayor and all of those things. So we're probably at that point of having some tough conversations about how do we embrace and grow our elected officials in our city.
No, I think that's an interesting place to be. One of the last questions I had here was, if you could have one superpower that make your job as mayor easier, what would you have?
One superpower would probably be, I mean, I just wish I had this anyway, but probably mind reading.
Okay.
Because it's one of those things too. I mean, anyone knows this, any professional thing, but you don't always know that someone's telling you the real full truth. And I think that happens a lot in government and in politics, if you will. And even though, we're nonpartisan and we're in a community and we're trying to do what's best for our community, there's still politicking involved between different communities and between businesses, and people are trying to, get their piece of whatever. So I would love to have some mind reading to know, like, what's the full story all the time and what are you really thinking kind of thing. I'm one of those people that tries to be pretty open. I think everyone knows that about me. Like, I say things like they are, and maybe that's not always the best way to be, but I am pretty much an open book, but a lot of people aren't or could be pretty close to the best. So, yeah, I wish I could read their minds and know what they really mean.
No, that's great. That concludes the lightning round. You've passed the gauntlet.
Oh, great.
Thank you for keeping up with me there. I think it's really interesting, though. We talk about kind of the role of a mayor and as things have changed. I'm sure you've probably seen the news of that. Oh my gosh, I can't remember which city she's from. The mayor that's like basically just embezzling money and everyone knows about it. I can't remember her name.
Who knows? It's probably happening everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, it could be happening in many places, unfortunately.
There was I feel stupid for not pulling her name and where she's from. I think she's in Pennsylvania maybe, but she was like going on a girls trip to Vegas and like taking her 10 friends with her and like putting it on the city card and like all this crazy stuff. But she keeps
have access to none of that, so I don't know how I would even do that if I wanted to. But.
Sure. But I think it's interesting living in a world of where things are going now, where like people can share their opinions on things instantly online and information travels so fast. What do you think has been like one of the bigger challenges for you in this mayor's seat now that you've transitioned out of council stuff and you're more in the mayor role?
Yeah. I would say some of it is that information sharing, honestly, is how to both internally within the city structure we have, almost 400 city employees, and making sure that we're all Team Ankeny, like I said, and like we're helping them understand like our support for a different city structure and where we're trying to go and what our philosophy is on governance and policy and that kind of thing. But within the city too, that's where social media is good and bad. There's a lot of community pages like on Facebook or whatever, which I kind of monitor, try not to. And then people will say like, hey, did you see such and such? And I'll go look at it. But it's the information sharing for accuracy of information, and incorrect information can be shared so quickly now, and it can be blown out of proportion. And so it's like, how do we as a city, if I think about our city communications or the way we do things, we kind of have to match the quickness of information that's happening from false sources, right? So it's like the quickness, the accuracy being seen as a relevant, reliable source, and raising our ability to do that. Because the old ways of sending an email newsletter or a mailing once a year or what have you, that just isn't going to work anymore in the future. Like, it needs to be quick, just in time information, even if it's like texting or some other way to do, or social media or something that we need to be able to do better at. And so that's one thing that I kind of feel like, what is my role in making that happen? I want to be someone who's seen as informative, engaged, providing reliable, good information. And, am I kind of the figurehead of the city that people turn to for that information or not? Maybe it's our city manager, maybe it's our council, maybe it's just like a no-named, it's a faceless thing that's just like the city is sharing this information on social media or something. So we're trying to kind of think through that because we do have a lot of engaged residents, but they won't. Half the time when I ask people like, oh, did you know about XYZ? They're like, I know.
Sure.
So how do I help with that? Yeah.
Well, I know that was another thing. So like I mentioned, we do a podcast here for the city of Granger. Same thing. It was like, I call it the cesspool of a Facebook group, that there's people with misinformation that just light something on fire and everyone gathers around and look at this thing. And it's like, it's not real or accurate or whatever. So it's like trying to find a mechanism to get accurate, on-time information about things that people care about. You know, it's not just like you said, the newsletter that you get in the email that you delete.
Right,
or
right. And it comes maybe quarterly or something. I mean, that's just not quick enough. And we kind of joke about that, not joke, but in a way, you know, there might be like a major, just an event happening in the city that's not great. Like say a bad accident, a fire, or whatever. I learn about that on social media quicker many times than, you know, I'm like the first dial from some of our city team if there's something like that happening, like to make sure I know, so I don't get, if I get called by media or someone asks me or whatever, and I'll be like, yeah, I already saw it. I saw it on Twitter or something, or I saw it wherever. And they're like, how? Like, how did you do that?
They're like standing there and there's water flying out. Like, how do you know? I'm literally here.
I know. They're like, we just got the call 5 minutes ago. How do you know about this? I'm like, because someone already posted it.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing is tricky.
Sure. And I just think it's interesting how information travels and how you can kind of keep up with it. One of the things too that we were wanting to kind of make sure that you have a chance to say is, with this misinformation, what's one thing that you wish all the residents of Ankeny knew? If there's like something going on, something floating around that you're like, is there anything that you feel like if you had the ear of every resident right now, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I see that's kind of the misinformation is this thinking that there's literally no planning that goes into anything. That they'll be like, oh, Ankeny planners don't know what they're doing. Like what? No one knows how to, you know, do projects or grow or whatever. And to go back and think, like we have it, what's called the Ankeny 2040 plan, our long-term, you know, plan for the community that looks at where will streets be? Where do we anticipate commercial development? Where do we see, you know, industry and whatever? And all that's planned out, you know, for the next 15 years or so. And when we do our capital planning, so streets, sewer, water, lights, parks, all those things, that's on a 5-year schedule that's updated every year. So it's always 5 years with the two, you know, the years coming up in the most near future being planned out the best. And so it's very, very planful, almost to the point where that could be part of the struggle, is like it's so planned out that you can't then, you know, turn Titanic when you need to. So I would say that's what I wish people knew, is like the amount of time and energy and expertise. Our city has amazing experience, extremely experienced staff, especially in development, finance. I mean, long-term employees that are really, really good at what they do. And then we use a variety of experts externally. And so the planning that goes into things is very extensive. And so that kind of hurts my heart a little when you hear like, oh, Ankeny doesn't plan for anything and these people don't know what they're doing. I'm like, oh, that is so just not true and not accurate and offensive a little bit to the expertise of our staff and of the people we work with.
Sure. No, I think it's a great piece. We talked a lot about your career path and just all the challenges and things. What do you feel like is one of the biggest lessons that you took from your time leading up to that PhD when you finally got to get that diploma, walk across the stage and see the kids there and everything? What were some of those lessons that you took from that experience and you take to your daily life?
Yeah, I would say it's that kind of perseverance and really just getting to the finish line. And it can be difficult. Like I said, I started doing my coursework for my PhD in 2005, right? And I did coursework, and then I changed real jobs a couple of times, and I would still get my classes in. There were a couple times I said to my husband, when our kids were young, and then I had another child, and I was in the middle of my dissertation. I'm like, do I really need to finish this? Like, I have the other degrees, I have this job, I have whatever. Like, what is the point? And he's like, yeah, you just finish it. Like, get it done. Like, you'll be so proud when you get it done. So I think it's that perseverance that once you really started something and you saw that goal in the future, to just get it done and, you know, make it happen. And now it was as soon as I graduated, it might have been like 5 minutes after I crossed the stage, my husband's like, so you're officially done with school now, right? I'm like, yes.
There you go. Well, I think it's the trophy's nice, but obviously the learning comes from the journey and the process. So what a crazy experience there. If people are curious about Ankeny, if they're listening to this and they're from the suburbs, they didn't realize all the crazy stuff going on in Ankeny, where can people learn more about the city and opportunities for employment, for housing, for what the whole town has to offer?
Yeah, so the city website has really great resources, but also the Ankeny Chamber of Commerce does as well. I would say looking at anything with Prairie Trail and what DRA kind of has through their social media accounts as well. All of those things are really great to look at. We try to be really involved with like Catch Des Moines, the Convention and Visitors Bureau. So all the various events and things like that happening are all listed on their site as well. And coming to town too. I think anytime we have a lot of events that happen in Prairie Trail or at the FFA Center or somewhere in town where it might be a conference or a meeting or a special dinner or something like that. I feel like every single time that happens, people walk up to me and they're like, I didn't realize Ankeny had this going on right now, or I didn't realize, you had grown this way or done this. And so coming to Ankeny for something, I think really is eye-opening for a lot of people when they do see really how kind of bustling it is and all the growth and all the business growth especially, that it's surprising at times.
Sure. No, I love it. Bobbi Bentz, thank you so much for coming in the podcast. If people want to connect with you, where's the best place to connect with you?
Yeah, definitely on Facebook, probably on my Facebook page, or just email. Like I'm pretty open. It's just bbentz@ankenyiowa.gov, and I answer those all day, every day, and I'll meet with pretty much anybody. Like anyone who requests to meet with me about something, I'm like, sure, let's talk about that.
Even a weird guy in a padded room in Granger, Iowa.
True. Yeah. I mean, there's a few people I'm like, maybe this could be in a phone call, but yeah, I try to be pretty open to things and meet people, especially in the community somewhere. So yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Awesome. Well, if you guys made it this far in the show, you guys know what to do. Check out Bobbi, connect with her, and then also make sure to check all the links below. We'll put links to all her stuff she mentioned, the city resources and things. But if you made it this far in the show, make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you can get episodes every single month or every single week on Mondays. That'll help you with your business and in your life. But until the next episode, my name is Ryan Snod. It rhymes with odd, and I'm out. Peace. Thank you so much for watching yet another episode of the Rhymes with Odd podcast. We really do appreciate your support. If you could give us a 5-star review on Apple iTunes, that makes a world of difference, guys. Also, if you're tuning in on YouTube or Spotify, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss another episode, and check us out on social media. Also, if you'd like to inquire more about our services here at Snod Media Group or learn about doing your own podcast for your own business, you can find us at snodmedia.com. We'll see you in the next episode. Peace.